Awesome. So welcome to today's presentation on the throat center. I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. All right, here we go. The throat center. So it's located, it's the third center down, it's this box here. And it will be either defined or undefined. 29% of the population has this undefined. So it's more common that it's defined. And the throat center has to do with communication, so voice, speaking. It also has to do with manifestation, so things actually coming into being, turning from, formless to form, and action, energy becoming deed, action, things moving into being through communication and action in the world. And it also has to do with the thyroid and parathyroid. So if you have any issues with that, this might be of interest to you on that level. All of the energy in the body graph, whether it's from the top two centers or all of the centers below, is aiming to make its way to the throat where it can become real. So everything wants access to the throat so that it can enter the world through action or through communication. So that's, if you think about, there are those two pressure centers, the head and then the root. So there's bringing energy into the body graph, and then everything is trying to make its way to the throat. So that's a helpful thing to think about. And, as you learn about this a little more, you can see this in relationship to the different types. And it will start to make a little more sense to you, how the types relate to the throat center. Because if you think about, the generator doesn't have a motor to throat connection. So they don't have that kind of make it happen ability, a pure generator. They might have a connection between their head and ajna and the throat. So they might have that happening, but they don't have a motor to throat connection. A manifesting generator does have a motor to throat connection. So that's that, energy moving to the throat to make something happen. A projector definitely does not have any motor to throat connection. So projectors, really cannot manifest anything. They need to wait. And likewise, the manifester then is motor to throat. That's what they are. They're here to manifest. That's why. So, and then the reflector, has no consistent connection to the throat. So, it really does make a difference for us all, what connection we have to the throat and what things are connected to the throat. In terms of how we work and how we, speak and move in the world. So anyone that has this center undefined has no consistent access to expression and manifestation for their energies and their body graph. So they don't, those that have the center undefined, they have no consistent way of acting. They have no consistent way of speaking. They can't rely on a consistent way that their throat can really do in the world. And, that's kind of a big deal on its own. They also don't necessarily know what they're going to say when they're talking. So they might be surprised at how things come out of their mouth, and they might not really know what they're saying when they're saying it. And they can say things in many different ways. People with the undefined throat, they don't have a defined way of speaking, which is beautiful, because when they're interacting with, so-and-so, they can say things to that person in one way. And when they're interacting with someone else, they can say things in another way. And that really creates that freedom to express themselves in all kinds of ways. Whereas someone, has a defined throat, they speak pretty consistently in one way. So having an undefined throat, the not self theme is all around attention, and either avoiding attention or seeking attention. So having a warped relationship with attention, and managing the attention that they are getting. So that would be the unhealthy behavior. And a good question to ask yourself, if you have this center undefined, is, am I still trying to manage the attention that I get? And rather than do that, just trusting that you're going to get the right attention through strategy and authority. Those that have the center undefined, chances are whoever you're around will have a defined throat. And so people, again, remember the mechanics of how these centers work is that the undefined centers amplify the energies of the defined centers. So someone that has an undefined throat is going to be experiencing amplified pressure to speak. These people can talk your ear off. They can go and go and go and talk and talk and talk and really monopolize attention when they're in the unhealthy form. I experienced that once. I went out on a date once with this guy, and he talked for 4 hours straight. Oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. I didn't say anything. He just kept talking. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I have to look at this guy's chart, because he must have an undefined throat. Here I am, I have a defined throat. And he did. He was, there's the discomfort with silence, and that especially with the pressure, having the pressure to speak. So the easiest way to kind of get rid of that pressure is just to talk. So that's something that you might find with people that have the undefined throat. I've also found, there can be real talkers who also have that motor to throat connection. So either manifestors or manifesting generators. But typically you can feel the difference. Someone that's a manifestor or a manifesting generator, they have a motor behind their throat. So they've got this kind of driving energy to their speech, and they have a defined way of talking. So it will be consistent. You'll notice that with me when I'm talking. I have a motor to throat connection. So I tend to talk in a certain way, and it has a rhythm, and it has a sound to it. And I usually have certain words that I use, and I can't really deviate from that pattern. It just comes out that way. And if you ask me to try to explain it in a different way, I might be able to, but I might just keep repeating the same thing over and over because that's the way I say it, and it's defined, so it's fixed. Whereas people that have an undefined throat, they can say things in many different ways and be very fluid and flexible. So you might kind of start to notice who are the talkers in your life and check out their charts. So this would be the goings on in the head of the undefined throat. Am I being noticed? Am I getting the attention I deserve? So I've seen this in, I remember I've seen this in some of my colleagues, you know, where people that have an undefined throat, they actually are more noticeable. They are designed to attract more attention. And that's very natural for them to attract attention. But otherwise, to be quiet, you know, they have more of a quietness about them because there's nothing consistent that's driving them to speak. And the secret is not to let this desire for attention to become a decision maker or a driver of your behavior. So I've noticed this with colleagues where you know, I can kind of see the desire for attention, the trying to be a star, show up a certain way. That's very undefined throat characteristic. And you know, you don't want to make a decision based on that, because let's say you have an opportunity to get attention, but it's actually not right for you. So we want to make decisions based on, you know, waiting to respond if you're a generator, and, you know, noticing how you feel if you have emotional authority or sacral authority. You know, what do you resonate with? You know, strategy and authority, not trying to get attention. Initiating conversations. That's another thing with the undefined throat. You know, practice being quiet and not initiating any conversation. You don't have that mechanic built into your design. Yeah, begin to also notice the pressure to speak and practice not speaking. I know my teacher, John, has an undefined throat, and he didn't speak for 6 months. He was silent. And in that time, you know, he went through a lot of pain in his throat. Like, he had symptoms that would occur for him of really just all that pressure building up in the throat, and, you know, moving through that, it released. And then there's such a cool thing that happens when, you know, when I think about him, it's just so lovely to hear him talk. And otherwise he doesn't, you know, he doesn't speak too much. It's like, when he's talking, it's just brilliant what's coming out. And I love hearing people with the undefined throat talk, because they can say things in so many different ways. It's very creative. I really, really love this slide. You know, this is, I think, of Fia Lin, who has the center undefined, and I've seen that with her, where she will just be sitting back quiet. And it used to bother me before I knew human design. We would go to events and she would be so quiet. She wouldn't be actively seeking out conversations with people or meeting people or talking. She would just be quiet. And sometimes I would know that she had the answer to what was going on in the conversation, and she wouldn't say anything. And now, that I know she has an undefined throat, it's just like, oh, she was really being correct with her design, which is just waiting. And, she would only speak in very particular situations, and it was always the right time. So enjoying that naturally quiet state and trusting that the right attention finds you when it needs to find you. This is just so beautiful too. I think this slide shows the creativity of the open throat and how many ways that it can say the same thing in order to get the message across. And the trick with that is not controlling it. It's really just allowing your speech to be what it is without needing to control what comes out, because you really can't. So it's an act of surrender and trust. So on the healthy side, remains quiet, not concerned with planning what they have to say. You know, you could plan, but who knows what's going to actually come out in the moment. Good at knowing who speaks the truth. Yeah, so having the open throat, you know, you're taking in and amplifying the throat centers of those around you. So those with this center, they can become wise. You know, who is using their speech well, who is actually truthful, what does sound true. People with this center can really kind of discern that. I mean, I don't know what that's like. I don't have that center or I have it defined. So transformation does not happen constantly, but rather in spurts. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm just learning that at this moment, because the throat center, you know, does have to do with transformation, because it's where things come into being. So someone that has that defined is an ongoing process, where someone that has it undefined, you know, it would be inconsistent how transformation happens in their life. Okay, unhealthy. Tries to attract attention. Now, this is so insidious. And if you have a center undefined, it might be difficult for you to even see that this is true. But man, I see this in people with this center undefined. I really do. And so, you know, take a look in the mirror. Just watch and see anywhere in your life where you are trying to get attention. Tries to be a manifester, tries to, you know, initiate and make things happen, and definitely talks excessively. Experience that one. Very insecure about what they're going to say, because they don't know, and they know that at some level they know that they can't control it, and they are trying to be the star. All right, let's look at the defined throat. So the defined throat tries to direct its manifesting energy with the mind. So that's a really good one. So, you know, the mind wants to control. So the mind will try to use that manifesting energy, the motor to throat, to do what it wants. And I mean, that's really a huge theme that comes up for people with human design in all ways. Is like, how can I use my, you know, motor to throat connection to get what I want? How can I do that? And that's not what this is about. It's about learning something else. This is an interesting slide. I actually somehow missed this one. So not self-defined throats think words are important, not recognizing the energy behind them. Yeah, I can really see that. I honestly don't really have anything to say about that at this moment. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just processing this. It's kind of took me by surprise. But I like what it's saying. I like this idea that, you know, the energy behind our words is more important than the words, but we can get so hung up on the story and the words that we've spoken that we, you know, follow through on that. So play out the story. I know for sure I've done that. Yeah, so understanding that, you know, as a defined throat, you create pressure on open throats. So just by being there, and that's, you know, something have become aware of, and those friends of mine that have those undefined throats, is that they tend to want to talk a lot when they're around me. They'll just start talking and talking. And then there's other times where they just really want to be quiet. So there's an inconsistency, and I think that's beautiful. So just letting that be what it is, and also seeing that whether like it or not, I'm putting pressure on them to speak just by existing. Yeah, so then this is, you know, again, just strategy and authority, coming back to using your strategy and authority to decide what to say and, you know, when to say it, rather than your mind. And, you know, I personally can relate a lot to this idea of the open throat, you know, not controlling what it's saying, because, you know, I'm not controlling what I'm saying here. I'm saying what's coming out, and there's a real flow to that. And I think that that is really beautiful, and it's natural for really all of the types to do that. And I'm just thinking in this case, since I'm a generator, for the generator to do that, because you know, we're responding and not having to know what you're going to say. That's really good for all of us. Has a fixed style of speaking and or acting. I really do feel that with having this center defined, that I can rely on my voice, and I can rely on my speech, that anytime I'm talking to someone, that I can rely on that I'm going to be able to say what needs to be said in the moment, and that there's a trust with it. So, you know, I can kind of imagine that it would be a little tricky having the center undefined, to learn to trust that you're going to be okay with whatever comes out of your mouth. Use the strategy and authority to find the correct timing for communicating and acting. Now that's really important, because especially if you're a manifestor or a manifesting generator, you know, you can do a lot of damage in your life with this defined throat by acting and speaking from a place of not having clarity. So, you know, if you're emotional, and you're upset, you know, the words that you say and the energy that you put out into others in those moments has consequences. And so that's the trick with, you know, direct motor to throat connection. It's kind of hard to hold back, but that's what this is about, is learning to, you know, keep those words to yourself and not give your energy away to every impulse. That's really, I think, a challenge with having this defined throat. Talks too much and does too much. Yeah. Another occasion, I had dinner with a couple new friends, and one of the guys just opened up. Well, part of it was that we had, I offered them some cider to drink, and he didn't realize that it was alcoholic. So, and he didn't really drink. So I accidentally, you know, spiked my guest's drink. And, you know, he was just talking and talking and talking all night. And there was that real driving quality to his speech where there was no space, there was no possibility of interjection. It was not really a conversation, it was like a monologue. And that would be very typical of a defined throat, a motor to throat connection. So both can talk a lot, the undefined and the defined. It's just kind of got a different quality to it. And in both cases, talking too much is unhealthy for either. So, using more strategy and authority to talk. And, if you're a projector, projectors also tend to talk too much, partly because of the, if they have an undefined throat, but also because they're looking for recognition. That's their thing, is they want recognition. So that can play into it too. Gives their energy away to every impulse, and that is really challenging. Having a motor to throat connection where you're dealing with a powerful engine that wants to connect and wants to speak or do things. And so, to be discerning about that, gosh, that takes so much mastery. I find it really hard. And the image that comes to mind is like trying to rein in this like power horse that just wants to like go. And it's like, okay, well, is this the right way to go? Is this the right timing and all that? So yeah, I'm curious to hear how you relate to this, and we'll leave it at that for right now.